The very first video I ever dropped on my channel was a 100% review of Marvel Spider-Man, so I felt like it was only right that I continue playing the series and releasing reviews. I haven't played Spider-Man 2, but it's sitting on the shelf waiting to be played. But of course I decided I needed to play in order of the releases, and I picked up Miles Morales. I had already played this game before. It was the first game I played on PS5 when I got one. So this time playing through, it was all about picking up 100%. I actually snagged this game last year during the Steam Winter Sale. Already from the beginning of the video, I can tell you that I love this game and I had a ton of fun with it on my second playthrough. I do wish the story was longer, but that's probably the only issue I had with the game. Probably an unpopular opinion, I think this game is actually a little bit better than the first one. Anyways, thanks for stopping by and checking out my video. If you like this one, why not stick around and check out another? Why not hit the like button and subscribe? The story for Miles Morales is honestly super good. If you're already familiar with the first Spider-Man, then you'll already have met Miles and saw what happened to him and how he became Spider-Man. At the beginning of the game, you'll be introduced to Miles, and the first thing that you'll be doing is escorting an armed convoy of prisoners back to the raft. During the escort, something goes wrong with the helicopter that is carrying the Supermax prisoner, and Miles, being the young kid that he is, takes it upon himself to try to fix the problem without anyone's help. I mean, if you were trying to improve yourself to your mentor, wouldn't you do the same thing? But anyways, he actually made it completely worse, and then you'll discover Rhino was a Supermax prisoner, since he actually broke out and within all the chaos released all the other prisoners. After this, you'll be introduced to Roxxon. Since the fight with Rhino ended up destroying one of their properties, after that fight, you'll find out that Peter's actually leaving and you'll be the only Spider-Man in New York for a few weeks. You'll be given some gifts from Peter, and on your way home to Christmas dinner with your family and friends, you'll run into a group called the Underground. Not knowing much about them, you'll discover that they actually broke into Roxxon Plaza, and you'll need to figure out why they broke in, The remainder of the story will mostly be the Underground and Roxxon at each other's throats, fighting the entire time. The Underground's leader, aka the Tinkerer, aka Finn, actually ends up being your best friend from middle school, who lost her brother who worked at Roxxon developing a clean form of energy called New Form. Yeah, well, turns out that New Form is not actually clean energy and actually makes people extremely sick, and it can cause some bone marrow disease. Or at least that's what's kind of inferred when you actually discover some medication that it seems that Finn's brother was taking. So then it's up to Miles to decide if he wants to tell Finn who he really is, or just try to stop her from doing anything she would regret, like blowing up a multi-million-dollar plaza. But also it turns out that she was actually trying to destroy New Form because only her brother knew how to make it, and he didn't leave any instructions anywhere since he already knew how deadly it was. All of this will lead you to end up having to fight your best friend because you decided to lie the entire time, and she doesn't believe you when you tell her that the New Form reactor will destroy all of Harlem and not just the plaza, which then leads to Miles absorbing all of the energy and Finn sacrificing herself and racing Miles into the sky so he can release the energy and no more innocent bystanders would get hurt. My overall thoughts of the story is that for being as short as it is, it's extremely fun and enjoyable. It does a great job at not overstaying its welcome. The big difference between this game and the original Spider-Man is there's only one group of enemies and one big boss. I mean, yes, you'll be fighting Roxxon and Rhino, but other than being the group that's getting robbed by the Underground and Rhino feeling more like a mini boss since you fight him a couple different times, that doesn't change the fact that the Underground is the main enemy within the game. I really enjoyed my time with this one, and Miles as a character was a ton of fun, and I really can't wait to see what they end up doing with him in the second one. The world for this takes place in Harlem, New York. Similar to the first game, you'll be swinging throughout the city completing different missions, side quests, and collecting a bunch of different collectibles. I enjoyed the world a bit more than the original. It's not like they completely revamped the formula either. It's not exactly completely identical either, but this world seems to be a bit more interactive with Spider-Man. If you ever catch yourself taking a break from swinging and you're just walking around, or even if you just walked away from your controller, it feels like so many more NPCs approach Miles. I know, it's similar to the first, it still happens in that game, but like I said, something about this world just really feels a bit better. I can't put my finger on it, but what I do know is I had a ton of fun swinging throughout the city. You can even notice so many little details on the buildings, or if you just sit around and watch the city. You'll be able to explore during the daytime or even change it up and go out during the nighttime, which can give the city a whole different vibe. You'll be able to discover different events going on or just overall explore the city. With the world that they built here, it definitely offers a ton of replayability to the game. There are two major enemy factions within the game that I'll be talking about, the Underground and Roxxon. Now I've already talked about both of them, but I'm going to be diving a bit deeper into them here. There are also the escaped convicts from the raft or just the general criminals throughout the city that you'll be fighting that I'll briefly cover at the end. Let's start with Roxxon. Roxxon being the first group that you are introduced to, and at first they are known as a multi-million-dollar company who is interested in creating clean energy and providing for their community. Yet when you first meet them, they have a private security firm with guys who are armed like crazy. It's already a little suspicious because they end up offering to hold Rhino for you after you manage to defeat him. You'll also be introduced to Simon Krieger, who is basically one of the main villains of the game. Roxxon also has a ton of different varieties when it comes to the enemies. Similar to the first game, you'll be going up against enemies who have access to shield, guns, and melee weapons. There are a few extra enemies like some Roxxon agents who run around with pistols and dodge and counter pretty easily, so they did add a bit of flair to the lineup. One of the big things with Roxxon is they do have skills that they can use to block your Venom powers and stop you from using any skill, so you'll want to dodge those as much as possible. Next up is the Underground, which is a group that refers to themselves as the Young Mafia. They're looking to take control of the crime in the city. They're led by the Tinkerer aka Finn, and I know that's a spoiler. You'll learn a lot about the underground within this game as you progress. Things like they took out the remaining demons from the first game as they took control of Harlem. They were also working out deals with Tombstone before he was taken down, plus they're actually taking control of all of Wilson Fisk's assets. They did a great job at building a whole new group, but managing to tie them into the first game and manage to give them their own identity within this one. The underground offers a bit of variety too when it comes to its enemies within the game. Similar to Roxxon, they will throw regular grunts at you, enemies with melee weapons, and ranged weapons, which can either use assault rifles or snipers. There is also enemies with shields and brutes with hammers. Each one of these enemies from both groups will require you to use Miles' Venom abilities to give you an advantage in every fight. Even with this being the second time I played through this game, the enemy groups really never got boring and were pretty enjoyable to go up against. Overall, the enemy factions are enjoyable and offer so much variety to the game. Plus, they slowly introduce new enemies throughout the game, so even up to the last mission, you will still be greeted with new variety. So even if you feel like you've seen almost every single enemy and you're prepared to go up against them in a fight, the game just throws a whole new player into the mix. Even if you just play games to play games, at least these two groups both have decent backstories that you will continue to gather and learn about them throughout the game. The only other thing I want to mention is the general criminals that you'll occasionally go up against, and this is going to be a massive spoiler if you haven't played the game before, but while playing and doing side missions, you will be trying to discover who is giving orders to the criminals and find out why they're doing what they're doing. At the end of it, you'll discover that the last player within the game is Wilson Fisk, and he's somehow managing to give orders while locked away in the raft, so it'll be up to Miles to shut him down. Throughout the entire game, there are a few different boss fights that will happen. I'm not going to dive into each one of them individually, but more or less talk about them all and how I thought they contributed to the story. So throughout the main story, you'll be facing off against Rhino, Prowler, and Tinkerer. Each one was a pretty fun fight, but honestly, none of them really offer a challenge or seem difficult. I did complete the game on amazing difficulty, which isn't the hardest one, but does provide a bit more of a challenge. But like I said, none of them felt extremely difficult, but it's not like you're going to breeze through them on the harder difficulties. Each one of these bosses did feel pretty unique, each one offering a different style to go up against. With Rhino being an absolute unit and having to stun him with your Venom powers, the Prowler is able to go invisible and launch some surprise attacks, plus the Tinkerer just overall has a ton of attacks to throw at you. One other thing I want to cover is essentially mini bosses. I believe there's really only one, which is during one of the side missions you'll face off against a hologram of Vulture. There's really no challenge here, especially if you played the first game. It can go pretty smoothly if you know how to deal with it. While playing the game, you will constantly be gaining experience from doing missions, side quests, or just collecting things in the world. You will constantly be leveling up Miles and unlocking new skills and gadgets. In total, there are 4 different gadgets to use within this game. Honestly, the only one I really found useful was the web shooter. The other 3 are not bad by any means, I just personally didn't find them any useful within my playstyle. I did have to use them in order to complete all of the achievements for the game. I also didn't really find the upgrades for the gadgets crazy useful either, other than allowing you to have another use slot for the gadget. To unlock these different gadgets though, you just have to progress throughout the main story. Next, I want to briefly go over the skill trees within this game. There isn't much to them, but the game does break the skill trees down into 3 different categories with an additional challenge tree. The trees include the combat tree, venom tree, and camouflage tree, and of course the challenge tree. Like the name of each one of these, the combat tree will grant you additional active and passive skills that will help you in combat, where the venom tree does the same thing with venom abilities and same as the camouflage tree. The challenge tree though does require you to complete some of the tests that Peter has left throughout the city in order to unlock them, which adds a unique feel to completing and getting those skills since you are required to do something else than just leveling. One of the big differences between this game and the first one is you will have access to utilizing different venom abilities as Miles, which are basically changes within Miles that allows him to control bioelectricity. He also has another ability such as camouflage, but I'm going to be focusing mostly on the venom abilities since the camouflage ability does one thing and I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory. So as you progress the story, Miles will unlock different skills to use to perform a venom ability. The first one that you'll start off with is the Venom Punch. Then comes the Venom Jump, Dash, Smash, and lastly the Mega Venom Blast. Out of all the venom abilities, the one I found myself using the most was the Venom Smash, and that's just because it was able to deal with large groups of enemies the best. Realistically, the venom abilities add a different way to deal with enemies and give you a ton of different options when you get into fights, which makes the combat a lot more enjoyable. I won't talk about this section very long, but similar to the original Spider-Man, you will be able to complete challenges to unlock different tokens. With these tokens, you can unlock different suits, each have different visor mods and suit mods. You are able to unlock all of the different mods and equip them to whatever suit you find best. There really is no right or wrong way to decide what suit to use. Just pick whatever you find the most fun to play in. Within this game, there are 8 different collectibles or just missions that you'll have to perform or complete if you are looking to 100% the game. These include spider training, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man app requests, time capsules, underground caches, side missions, sound samples, hideouts and labs, and the postcards. Each one of these will unlock as you play the game, and there isn't a crazy amount of any of them that makes you tired of doing them. Some of them are way easier than others, but none of them are crazy difficult, just time consuming. The only thing of importance with them that you need to know is you will not be able to collect the postcards until you complete the main story on the first playthrough. Now let's talk about the difficulty of getting 100% for this game. To collect all of the achievements, it took me about about 20 hours. Most of the achievements can be completed during the first playthrough of the game. If anything, all of them but 2 can be completed on the first playthrough of the game. The only ones that require a second playthrough is Plus Plus and the Be Yourself achievement. A few achievements like completing all of the extra content that the game offers can take some extra time, but the thing is there isn't a lot of extra content. The biggest thing is the underground caches, which there are 35 of them to be collected throughout the first playthrough. A majority of the collectibles have less than 15 to them, which makes it extremely quick to complete, especially if you know the right fast travel points to go to. The price of the game on Steam is $49.99, and I do think it is worth it, with about an 8 to 12 hour main story depending on how quickly you want to go through it, some enjoyable side content, a well-crafted city that feels great to explore, plus a fun cast of characters. I think the game is more than worth the price. The nice thing is though, this game is a bit older, so you can definitely find it on sale for a bit cheaper. But there's my 100% review of Miles Morales. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and check out my channel for more reviews. Don't forget to subscribe, it definitely shows me that you like the content. Comment down below any games or series of games that you want to see me review or 100%. Thanks for watching.